He kōna ipurangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
Kia ora and welcome along to the Music 101 interview podcast. I'm Charlotte Ryan. In this week's Thursday Throwback podcast, we're going back to 2020 to my interview that I did with Run the Jewels. Run the Jewels, also known as RTJ, they're an American hip-hop duo composed of New York-based rapper and producer LP and Atlanta-based rapper Killer Mike. They released their debut studio album as a free download back in 2013 and have since released 4 albums, but it's their latest, the one that I interviewed them for, RTJ4, released in 2020 and for many was the album of 2020. It was released alongside the political rising of Black Lives Matter and brings such a strong social and political awareness of that time. When I was offered to talk to Run the Jewels, Mike and LP, I must admit I was really nervous. I like rap music, I love rap music, but I'm definitely not a connoisseur, and these guys are like next level. But when I started researching them, I actually found out, of course, that they're amazing, real, positive humans. LP actually worked on the Veils album, and Killer Mike, he's such a fascinating character. One thing I was so interested in is his black entrepreneurial spirit and his strong voice in local and national politics and how he even got into that. From Music 101 in 2020, enjoy this interview that I did with Run the Jewels.
It's pretty mind-blowing, you know? I mean, I think that we never intend to do anything but just kind of speak to our own hearts and just be friends who make records together and try and speak to the things that we care about, and also engage in the joy of our love for hip hop music. And there's a part of us that says that stands together and makes statements, and there's a part of us that hangs out together and makes jokes. And both of those things get on these albums, And when it lands and how it connects with people is something that you really can't control. And right now it is pretty overwhelming to see how much it's connecting with people. And I think that you can't look at that as anything else but a good thing, because I guess it's a little scary sometimes, but what it really means is just that the things that we're saying are now falling on ears that are really attentive. And that's, for a musician, for a writer, for an artist, that's something that you always want. You always want a receptive audience, but you don't expect it, And so it's been interesting. It's been interesting.
How do you balance those things? Having such incredibly strong messages, but then also sometimes the best sense of humour.
I think that it's the human experience. I grew up with my grandparents and older people in the community where you'd often hear the phrase, "You got to laugh when you want to cry," or "You laugh when you want to cry." There really is a absurdity of laughter and joy in perilous times if you remain hope-filled and other people are sharing that experience with you. Part of the reason I'm able to laugh and do dumb jokes from Run the Jewels 1, 2, 3, or 4 in terms of the political climate in the country has been that I'm sitting in a room oftentimes with people who don't look like me, who on the news are being pitted against me, but we're friends. Like me and Jaime are really friends around first and foremost our love of rap music and thinking each other is dope. One just happens to be black, one happens to be white. That doesn't mean that we ignore that. We take the pressures and the world and how it deals with us, and we put that in records together and provide new perspectives. You know what I mean?
A huge part of our relationship is wanting to make the other person laugh, wanting to make the other person smile. Me and Mike are essentially class clowns, as are a lot of entertainers. We have no problem as artists talking about shooting a poodle, as well as talking about systemic oppression. Like, to us, that there's no conflict there, and because the music that we love is varied and it's funky and fun and dope and raw. And yet at the same time, this is our outlet. This is what we've chosen to express ourselves, and we're men. So we are going to take those moments to talk about the things that we care about and to express our angst and our joy and our sorrow and our anger. This is the palette that we have, and we're not going to. We feel very strongly about never limiting ourselves to any one form of expression. And I think that that's kind of the secret to Run the Jewels. I think that's one of the reasons why people are receptive to us, is because we're not coming out here to be your teacher. We're not coming out here to be better than you. we're literally just a couple of stoner fuck-ups who happen to be kind of smart, you know? And, you know, at our best, we can say something that moves people, I hope, because they know that because they're receptive to us, because we're not coming at you from a pedestal. You know, I think it's a lot easier to listen and to be open to someone who just made you laugh than it is to be listening to someone who's yelling at you.
Mike, you're known and you've got such massive respect for being really politically outspoken. You've been speaking about social inequality and systemic racism for years. Do you remember the first time you ever became politically aware?
No, I was raised by grandparents. My grandparents were born in 1922, 1932. So there was no grand political epiphany. Oh, my God, blacks are not treated well, or poor people. It was an understanding from the very beginning that the world is fighting against you in terms of the truth that they told. My grandparents would say, these black folk used to couldn't do this. And it was just very plain and matter-of-factly. My grandfather actually preferred black community prior to desegregation because he'd say we were stronger financially. But I think that my political awareness or class or social awareness came with watching movies with my grandfather, in particular the original Planet of the Apes series and the reading of Animal Farm and books like that, all in around the same age. What it helped me to understand, because I'm looking at animals. I'm looking at Animal Farm as animals and setting up their own society and all the ups and downs and the proclivities to seize power that say the pigs had in there and the using of the old mule. Like, I started to identify that with people because I'm in Atlanta. So even though I'm hearing about racism and social inequality from my grandparents, it's not in a way where we're victims. It's in a way that these things occur. These are why they're occurring, and this is how you combat it. But it's also all my heroes and villains happen to be black, because the power in the ruling class are black people. So I start to look at, you know, because Animal Farm class in a different way. And when I I remember looking at Planet Apes with my grandpa, just like, yo, the apes, they've taken over, and this is, and him helping me understand and how things, you know, align. So it was media that did it. It wasn't necessarily an incident, because I understood what apartheid and Jim Crow were, because my grandparents and parents have been honest about what it was. But when I saw these books, when I read this book and saw these movies, it locked in for me all the way that this is what it is. And after that, you know, you can just, after the blinders are off, you can never unsee it. So I was lucky in that I lived in an all-black neighborhood called the Collier Heights. You can Google that. I grew up in the Collier Heights. I went to black schools named for black emancipators like Frederick Douglass. And then I went to Morehouse College. So my whole life was pretty insulated with a security and confidence in being black. But the advantage was all my heroes and villains happened to be black also. So I understood power was more so based in class. And in this country, it was racism is used as class and color. But I understood that anyone had the potential to abuse power. So I started to see the bigger sense, I think, even earlier than some.
I read somewhere that your father was a policeman.
Yeah, he was when I was young. He was a police officer in elementary school.
Did you feel conflicted at all when you were younger with your father being a policeman? Were you scared of police when you were younger?
No, again, because I'm in Atlanta. All my heroes and villains are black. So I'm used to black police officers, a black police chief, a black mayor. I was scared of the power of police officers. So it wasn't like I was just scared of officers. The power that officers had, my dad helped me understand early. Policemen have total power over you in some situations, and it's up to us to regulate that power as a society so that it's not abused. So I've met my share of good and bad officers, you know, and in most cases, because I'm in Atlanta, they look like me. So I got a real lesson in terms of evil doesn't always know bounds, but the fact that society so programs people to see black men as evil makes it easier for police to kill black men in particular and women. So rest in peace to Mr. George Floyd and Breonna on that.
Let's talk about the new album. It feels like it's a nod to the golden era of hip-hop or something, both lyrically but also production-wise, and bringing in DJ Premier and so many other artists. Was giving a nod to the quote-unquote golden era of hip-hop a conscious thing for you guys?
Yeah, to a degree, in the sense that that's the era that we grew up in. You know, it's the era that me and Mike are 1 month apart in age to the year, and you know, we don't make music that is old school, but we are very. We knew that we settled into on this album. We knew that we wanted to really give a nod to what our influences were, because the spirit of that music is still what drives us. Now we're people who love new music. We're not the type of rappers who think that everything was better back in the day. You know what I mean? Like we're 100% into new music, but you know, we're honest about what our influences are and what the spirit of the stuff that we fell in love with in terms of hip-hop music is. So as a producer, I definitely went out of my way this time to give little nods and pay little homages to that stuff, simply just because it's honest. It's like, look, it's not about saying, hey, this is an old sound, because it's not. This is not an old sound, and no one's, you know, at this point, because no one's even doing this type of stuff, it's a new sound, you know? But these are people that influence us and that we love. And you know, if like something like Ooh La La, for instance, not only are we getting DJ Premier to do the cuts and Greg Knight to do the hook, but that comes straight out of our growing up loving these people's music. Getting the chance to reach out and work with heroes of ours. But it's also about the feeling. And the feeling of that song, despite the fact that it's a new beat that I created, it gives you a feeling that we knew was something that if we could capture, the thing that we loved about hip-hop music, the thing, if we could capture that spirit and bring it into a modern world, that people would smile when they heard it.
You brought the release date of your album for 2 days early, and were you always going to release it as a free album, or was that a last-minute decision too?
Well, there's a little confusion. We didn't release it as a free album. We released it as an album for people to buy and to stream, but we also, just like we have on the first one, the second one, and the third one, we also make our music available for free download for people. And that's because we didn't want money to be the deciding factor between whether or not you heard our music. There are people that cannot afford Spotify, Tidal, Apple Music, Amazon, you know, and it shouldn't be prohibitive. It shouldn't be that you can't listen to or join in or be in the spirit of, you know, of the music that we're making simply because there's a paywall there. And we never wanted that to be the case. And we just knew that we wanted the hearts and minds of people, and we didn't want it to be about just a cold, hard transaction.
And was it a coincidence that you're releasing the album this year, election year? You know, looking back at your other releases, they've also come out in election years. Is that purposeful?
It was a coincidence.
No, we're not judging when we drop our records according to when the U.S. elections. We drop our records according to when we feel like we've worked on a piece of art to the point where it's dope enough to present, or we're just so tired and it's time to, as they say, every work of art is never finished, the artist just abandons it. So, you know, we either it's finished, you know what I'm saying, it's finished, done, or we've done all we could do, but it does not correlate with the President of the United States in any way.
No. In fact, if it were up to me, it really wouldn't be the case, quite honestly. And like you know, like Run the Jewels is like these. I kind of think of Run the Jewels as like these two like stone friends like stumbling through history. Like we're like the Forrest Gump of rap groups, basically. Like we can't, we literally can't help but somehow trip and stumble our way into these times, and it's only simply because of just a bevy of random circumstance and things that happen, you know. But the record is coming out this year simply because the record was done, you know. That was, and we couldn't control that.
Yeah, it must feel quite special because so many people are so politically engaged at the moment.
Yeah, it feels powerful.
Absolutely.
It does.
Absolutely. Glad that it helped.
Yeah. The American elections are coming up this year. Are you guys worried about the outcome?
Yeah, I'm not worried because my community has always managed to survive, and some of us even found a way to thrive as we search for, you know, true constitutional rights, equality within the system. So I'm not as worried, but I'm glad the country is worried, because the worry that the country is feeling is the worry that black people have had to be burdened with the entire run under every U.S. president, including the one who looked like he could be our cousin. Police brutality did not start and did not end with Trump. Giving more credence to larger financial institutions and corporations versus small and medium businesses did not just begin with Trump. The restricting of our rights and the proliferation of rights over us by the state is not just under Trump. So I'm worried, like black people are always worried, that the government just ain't going to get some of my shit, they fuck it up. But that's no more worry and the panic than most are feeling. And it's good that we're all feeling at the same time, because maybe we'll do something and we can progress past this moment and progress this country in doing so.
Mm.
I will say that in all honesty, although I totally understand everything that Mike is saying, and I love his perspective, if you were to ask me if I'm worried, I'd have to say yes. That's just me personally. Yes, I'm worried. I believe that we have a rudderless ship. I believe that we have a country that, more than anything, needs someone who understands how to operate with intelligence and empathy, and I do think that there are, after 3 years, I can say that I definitively do think that there are unbelievably negative results of having somebody in that symbolic but also very powerful office who is incapable of connecting to the human race. And that's what we have. We have somebody in that office who does not understand the concept of empathy, does not possess it, and is easily manipulatable, possibly pre-dementious, very likely addicted to all sorts of strange pharmaceuticals.
Why are you talking about Joe Biden like that?
some of which may have been designed to to keep his disgusting tuft of hair on top of his head. We know history, and we have seen that there are people who rise to power that ultimately they're not playing the same game. I think that the current president is well on track to inhabiting the shoes of previous dictators, and I think that there's nothing but death and pain that can follow that. So yeah, I do need him out of there personally for me to feel a little bit better. That's just my perspective.
Sorry, I'm a bit speechless. You're what we need at the moment to sort of enlighten us. And lots of people are suggesting, Mike, that you should get into politics. Would you ever consider running for office?
In the next 5 years, absolutely not. I'm having fun. I'm making rap music. I'm smoking joints. I get to go to the strip club with my wife. Does it make sense to stop the success of Run the Jewels to say, hey, I think I should be on city council this year? I think that would be very selfish and narcissistic when our music actually is encouraging the good people who are getting into politics, hopefully from the ground level of organizing. And I'm going to continue to be a mobilizer for good organizations like Next Level Boys Academy, Paul Kids, the New Georgia Project. We get people registered. I'm going to continue to support people like Mayor Ted and on the ground locally. You know what I mean?
Well, I told Mike years ago, I looked at him, and Mike can attest to this, and I said, Mike, my dream is that one day you will become mayor of Atlanta.
He did say
so that I could, so that I can move to Atlanta and become your embarrassing friend. Like I want to be like the embarrassing friend who's caught in like a real estate scam because he knows the mayor. That's what I want out of Killer Mike one day.
My time is out, but I have one more question because I spoke at the start about your New Zealand connections. You've toured New Zealand, played at Laneway Festival. You've supported Lorde on her American tour, and you did that amazing remix of Supercut. And LP, you also worked with the Veils with Finn Andrews on the album.
Yes.
We want you to visit New Zealand again. Do you think there's any chance of it, or have you got any touring plans? I know that.
Well, I don't know if that's on the schedule for the Rage Against the Machine Run the Jewels tour. I'd have to look. But we are doing that tour starting next summer. It's been rescheduled and planned for that. But the second that we can get out there, we will. We love New Zealand. And honestly, I'm like highly considering trying to appeal for citizenship there because you guys seem to be the only people. You guys seem to be the only adults in the room who actually managed to figure out how to deal with a pandemic. And I like that energy. Plus, I'm a big fan of The Hobbit, and my dream one day is to become an elf.
Oh, guys, it's been so awesome to talk to you. Thank you very much for your time and congratulations on the album.
Thank you so much.
Love and respect. We appreciate you.
You were listening to my interview that I did with Run the Jewels back in 2020, a little Thursday throwback podcast for you this week. We were speaking about the album RTJ4, which you must go and listen to. It all makes so much sense. It's such a powerful album. But then go and listen to Killer Mike's new solo album. It's called Michael. Now, if you love music, like we do, make sure you follow the Music 101 interview podcast and rate it if you like it. Until next time, take care.